back in, party people, to another edition of Name Brand or Off Brand. And today, we're going to be looking at two highly coveted wide receivers, both playing for the same team. That's right, Mr. Ja'Marr Chase and one Mr. T. Higgins. Adam, I know you don't succumb to it, but I really don't think there's much of a difference between the two, and I'm more than willing to have all the T. Higgins on my team at the expense of Ja'Marr Chase. But dive into it, buddy. Let's look at these weeks, week by week, and how they did and how they stack up.
Let's do it, man. Since it's name brand versus off brand, Mike, have you ever had where you buy the name brand and you buy the off brand and you're thinking to yourself, what's the difference here? It's the same thing, right?
Hey, man,
and
I
then,
live it every day. Every day. Why buy Grey Goose when I could buy Sam's Club vodka? It's the same thing.
It's funny, man. Go. Members Mark, because I'm looking at, a Members Mark water bottle here. Joke's on us, Mike, because guess what? You'll see here on the bottom, Niagara. They just hide it from you. It is the same thing. What do you know? And Mike, as we start to dive into this, are we looking at the name brand and off brand being the same, or is there a difference here? Let's dive into it. So we will start off with Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Now, with Ja'Marr Chase, obviously right now he's being valued as the wide receiver one, very similar to Justin Jefferson, who we did on the last episode. So when you go week by week, Mike, starting at week 1, Ja'Marr Chase did actually get the win. He was a wide receiver 2. Ja'Marr Chase was, and then T. Higgins was a wide receiver 3. Ja'Marr Chase, week 2, gets the loss. He is a wide receiver 4. T. Higgins, a wide receiver 2. Then week 3, Ja'Marr Chase gets the win both of these weeks because T. Higgins does not play. So he's now up 3-1. It will be 4-1 after week 5 when Ja'Marr Chase, a wide receiver 1, T. Higgins, a wide receiver 3. Once again, Ja'Marr Chase gets the win in week 6, 25. He's a wide receiver 3. T. Higgins, a wide receiver 5. Then you get Ja'Marr Chase as the wide receiver 2. T. Higgins, the wide receiver 2 overall, where T. Higgins is a wide receiver 2. Then Ja'Marr Chase actually loses to T. Higgins the following week. That's 2 wins for T. Higgins. Once again, the next week, T. Higgins wins. He's a wide receiver 2. Ja'Marr Chase, a wide receiver 3. So at this point, T. Higgins has 3 wins to Ja'Marr Chase's 5. Obviously, they had the same bye week. They're on the same team. At that point forward, Ja'Marr Chase gets the win out of the bye week. T. Higgins has a very bad week here. He was a wide receiver 7. The next 2 weeks, though, T. Higgins is the wide receiver 2 and the wide receiver 4 in fantasy, smashing Ja'Marr Chase in those 2 weeks. Ja'Marr Chase is a wide receiver 5 and a wide receiver 3 in those weeks. The following week, Ja'Marr Chase gets the win, wide receiver 4 overall. He's a wide receiver 1. T. Higgins is still a wide receiver 2. Both of them the following week are not in the picture. They're missing your lineup. The following week after that, T. Higgins, wide receiver 1 overall. At this point in the season, Mike, something Ja'Marr Chase has not done. Ja'Marr Chase this week, he did finish as a high-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 14 overall for the week. The next week, though, Ja'Marr Chase does get the wide receiver 1 overall for the week. T. Higgins, at that point, was a wide receiver 4. The following week, Ja'Marr Chase did beat T. Higgins, who did not play. Difference here, though, is that Ja'Marr Chase missed your lineup.
It's actually our new best ball metric that you're reading right there. So not
yes,
3 and 7. So that's total for the year. So what we started doing is going back and looking at last year. And eventually I'll be going back a couple of years because I want good 3-year data. But last year's data, Ja'Marr Chase, 3 spike weeks. So he was top 5 at his position or better 3 times. T. Higgins, 3 spike weeks, top 5 at his position or better 3 times. Right? Now, above average weeks. So for wide receivers, that's wide receiver 24 or better. Both of them, 7 above average weeks. They would enter your lineup for best ball. Identical scores across the board and really providing you the same kind of value, which is absolutely fucking insane to me. Like, you just look at how they alternate, like, wide receiver 1 weeks, wide receiver 2 weeks, and they just go back and forth. It is insane how both of these guys were highly productive, but Ja'Marr Chase is going at the 107 in Adico's ADP, Adam. T. Higgins goes in the third round, 307, exactly 2 rounds after him. Like, why pay for Dolce & Gabbana when you can get the off-brand a little bit cheaper? Now, It's not like T. Higgins is old either. He's not 27, right? He's a young guy. He's a young guy, still tied to Joe Burrow. Now, I understand there's a little bit of an issue with, are they going to keep him? But we don't know that. Like, how can you project, like, the Bengals are just going to be like, yeah, go ahead. We're just going to let you walk, buddy. He is a really, really good receiver. It just so happens he kind of gets outshined a little bit by the hype of Jamar Chase. So this is why I'm completely in on T. Higgins at his cost versus Jamar Chase at his cost. And I think you and I have for a while now said that if you can trade your Jamar Chase for T. Higgins and pick up a first-round pick, it's the easiest thing. The easiest thing. The easiest cheat code. And
that was easy.
Just like the Staples button, baby. Just smash that.
That was easy. And Mike, this is the thing that I think gets confused about the two. Okay, so they both had a week in the season where they were wide receiver 1 overall for the week. It's just that there is a recency bias, I feel like, where the last week we saw for fantasy purposes, right? Jamar Chase was wide receiver 1, and he won people championships. He was so good in the championship game. In fantasy, he did win people fantasy championships. But the very week before, Mike, T. Higgins scored very close, not as much as Jamar Chase, because he did have 3 touchdowns in that game, but very close to that point production the very week prior, in week 16. So, Mike, the interesting part as well is there's this conception of Jamar Chase is the alpha in the offense. Well, I guess define alpha for me, Mike, because if you're talking touchdowns, right? Yes, he did score more touchdowns than T. Higgins did. But to me in fantasy, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Jamar Chase is not someone that can score touchdowns. Clearly in his rookie season we saw that he can. But it's not a stat that you want to bake in a lot of your production to, and it's the least sticky stat in all of fantasy. So the fact that T. Higgins scored 6 touchdowns where Jamar Chase scored way more than that. The off-brand doesn't score as many touchdowns last year, but is that something that we're sure that's going to continue to happen year in and year out? When? Keep this in mind when you're talking about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. If you're saying the alpha is who gets more targets, the person that led the team in targets per game last year, Mike, was T. Higgins. It was not Jamar Chase.
Yes.
Targets per game. Now, if you go look at raw numbers, you're going to see Jamar Chase had 128, T. Higgins had 10. But T. Higgins played 2 less games than Jamar Chase did. So when you talk about targets per game, T. Higgins is actually the alpha in the offense last season. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I want T. Higgins over Jamar Chase. Please believe this is the name brand and the off brand. We're telling you, though, that I believe that in most times, more often than not, you will be able to get a first-round pick at minimum to down tier from a Jamar Chase to a T. Higgins. So
I'd absolutely be over the moon if I could get that. Now, a couple seconds, I think we're still having a discussion where I might be in on that as well. Adam, did you know, we talked about T. Higgins in the missed games, right? But he also had some games where he's coming back from injury or he got banged up and left early. So we only have a 5-game sample size where they both played at a 75% or greater snap share, right? And in those 5 games, they both got 42 targets. T. Higgins had 32 receptions. Chase only had 29. Chase had 523 yards receiving. T. Higgins had 531. Now, Chase had 5 touchdowns. T. Higgins had 3. But it just goes to show you that when they're both in there, this whole concept of like dual alpha is actually a very real thing. And I know it's something that I'd mentioned to you and talked about to you last year going into the season. And it was like, well, I could probably see it. Like, you weren't fully on board with me, but I was like, T. Higgins is fucking really good at football, man. It wouldn't shock me if he's like the leading receiver on the team. Now, Jamar Chase, you mentioned, man, he had some explosive games, but we also saw some explosive games from T. Higgins, and we also saw it in the playoffs, too. Like, the games that really mattered, T. Higgins did show up big time. Now, I think, what was it, the Super Bowl? He had that, blatant grabbing the face mask of Jalen Ramsey that led to a long reception, but still counts in the stat book, baby. Still counts in the stat book. But yeah, this just goes to show that you don't need to pay up. Similar to our last episode when we were talking about Justin Jefferson and Deontay Johnson, like the name sometimes carries a little bit too much. I'm not saying that I straight up, you told me right now I would trade them 1-for-1, but just acknowledge that there's a value difference there that you can exploit. So that's what we're trying to bring to you, baby. I love it, man. I'm a big T. Higgins fan. I think I need to get a T. Higgins jersey.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike, what's funny here is the off-brand we're discussing right now is consensus top 10. For Mike and I, it's a top 5 wide receiver. So there are going to be some in the future where we talk about down-tiering quite a bit in rankings. But when we're talking about Justin Jefferson and a Jamar Chase in these first 2 episodes, you can go down to a Deontay Johnson, who's a top 15 guy for sure in Dynasty. You can go down to a T. Higgins, who's a top 10, if not a top 5 guy in Dynasty. Like, the price right now is so high on Justin Jefferson and on Jamar Chase that give me the off-brand in a first. I mean, I've seen deals, Mike, everybody listening, that are even more than a first in value being added to go to T. Higgins. So I think right now, I'm not saying you have to do it. Listen, if you got Jamar Chase on your team, you want to keep him and roll with him, fine. But put him on the block. We did a podcast a long time ago about the Jamar Chase trade hysteria. It still stands true today. Do yourself a favor, explore it, see what the name brand will get you if you go down to the off brand.
Man, that's going to do it for us. We're going to bounce out of here. But next week, we will be back with at least one more of these episodes focused on wide receivers before we possibly switch gears and look at a few other positions as well. But next week, Darnell Mooney versus one Tyreek Hill. So make sure you check that out. We're out of here. Make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.
Peace.